I work with an admission and career counseling team of students from various universities and institutions in different fields. Our main aim is to help students and their parents gain a first-hand idea of student life, challenges, college applications, workload, and other such issues regarding colleges and universities both nationally and internationally. We also have guidance experts and counselors on board for specific concerns. Most of the people in the team are not affiliated with universities except as simple students from said uni. This is important. Our main work includes talking to parents and students, helping out with applications, proofreading essays, helping build a portfolio, etc. We never guarantee admission, nor do we claim to be able to ensure your kid's admission. The way we reach out to students is either via their schools inviting us for presentations or via word of mouth. We recently did a presentation for a mixed group of parents and students in an Enlist private school in the city of our main office. We had a table with pamphlets and contact details and forms for students or parents to fill out or take with them. We also had a couple of people sitting at the table for people to come up to talk to personally. We had a largely positive response, however. Some obvious cases of why should I hire you when there is no guarantee of admission from you, and what can you do for the child that I cannot do, and other similar questions we are prepared to answer. However, this Karen took the cake. She was initially sweet, came up to me, started asking me details of my own schooling and background. Again, very common, and my career path. She then moved down to a student from a new yet very popular uni, think Ivy League level, of our country. She asked for details of her schooling and background and then proceeded to take a few pamphlets and move back, letting others talk to the student representatives. While I was entertaining some of the school admin, principal and counselors and senior teachers, Karen made her way back to the table, beelining for the student representative. She pushed herself up to the front and loudly demanded the student representative to convince her that her uni was worth a huge fee and the hype, and to convince her to send her kid to the unit. The representative, while very smart and quick on her feet, obviously fumbled a bit. This is not a marketing job, and she's all but a young student herself. She quickly recovers and strings together an answer. While her answer impressed a whole host of students and parents alike, Karen looked less than impressed. She grumbled something, but I did not catch what she said over the clamoring of parents and teachers asking the rest of the student representatives questions and talking. We soon got distracted and did not see Karen again. I thought that was the end of it. Boy, was I wrong? So the way counseling works is we offer students and their parents one open counseling session in a group. We publish our session details and parents are free to walk in, pay a small fee, nominal, and attend the session to see if we would be a good fit for them and their children. This is a generic session that covers the basics of how to plan for college and college selections. Then parents can email us or call us to book a session. In this, they can specify the name of a counselor or give a specific requirement they would like us to address so we can assign a counselor accordingly. They then attend a session with the assigned counselor, and on the basis of collective feedback, we decide whether they are good fits for each other and proceed from there on. Now, I don't work as a counselor. My job description includes outreach, general advice, team management, event organization, and other similar roles. I am not an expert, nor do I claim to be one. So when my coworker called me over to tell me that a disgruntled parent who had already done the open session and a one-on-one session wanted to book a session with me and mention me by name, I was baffled. My name is nowhere in the advisors or counselors or even student representative lists. I declined to host the session. I would be fired or pulled up for it, but offered to host the parent and kid for a coffee discussion. My coworker called back the parent in front of me, and while I could not hear her exact words, even though the phone was not on loudspeaker, I could hear her scream and yell. She was finally calm enough and agreed to meet me. She wanted a meeting the same day. I was going to have a relatively empty day, so I nodded yes to my coworker to confirm my availability. I was already not having a good feeling about this lady. She was punctual, very punctual. It is rather unusual in my experience. She walks in and behind her was a sharply dressed young girl in her school uniform. This was a weekend and I know this school does not take classes in person or on weekends, so there was no need for a uniform. They walked in and the girl, a nice kid, softly greeted me, addressed me formally with a lot of respect and introduced her mom. The lady launched into an informal conversation with me about how great it was to see a familiar face again, and started talking to me as if we had known each other. It took me a second to connect the dots, but I quickly did and asked her if she was the same Karen from the school event I organized. She said yes. We sat down and had a long conversation about college and post-school education. This was not a paid session. I was doing it on my own dime and time. Well, she kept cutting me off and talking over me, but I'm used to nervous and entitled parents, so I stayed patient. I gently reminded her that I was not a professional counselor, which she ignored. She then brought up Uni X, the same one she had pestered the student representative about, and said so my husband and I did some research into it. We think this uni will be the best for our daughter. Money is not an issue with us. Tell me how much it will cost to send her there. I presumed she meant uni fees. So I quickly opened up the uni website and started explaining it to her. She once again cut me off, this time by aggressively snapping her fingers in front of my face while I was looking at the laptop and talking. No, I know all that. Even I can Google, okay? I meant, how much will I have to pay you? Once again, I presumed she meant what our fees were for a general counseling structure. So I once again started explaining the details of it to her. Once again, a finger in my face and a rude cutoff. Are you that dense? Wow. For someone from the school you went to, I would not expect this stupidity. She then explained in our regional language with slow, punctuated words, as if speaking to a child, that she meant how much would it cost her to make sure her child gets into the unit. As a bribe, while I was offended, this was my place of work and I could not throw her out. Plus, we often have parents ask us something similar, the whole guarantee admission to our kid bit. I matched her tone and explained to her that we do not offer such services, that it was illegal and all we could do was coach and help her daughter hone her skills, but not ensure admission. Cue tantrum. The biggest, loudest, most entitled screaming fit I have ever seen a 40-something lady have ensued. We were in a glass meeting room towards the end of the office space, and we were surrounded by basically the entire department, including my boss. My boss walked in as she saw the situation getting worse and worse, and my attempts to calm Karen down failed. She sharply cut Karen off and introduced herself. Karen then launched a complaint against me, calling me a cheat and accusing me of making false promises and of falsely advertising the fact that I would get her daughter in during the school open house. She also started demanding I be fired and that the boss make sure that her daughter was admitted into Uni X, otherwise she would sue all of us for malpractice and false advertising. First of all, I always repeat multiple times that we do not guarantee an admission. Second of all, we legally cannot do so, so any promises made on illegal grounds are not enforceable in a court of law. Third of all, each open house session is recorded and stored for training and future references. Boss reviewed each session and was hence very well aware of what I had and had not said in the session. These were then communicated to her by my very stern-looking boss. Karen once more yelled about how she would sue us to the point of bankruptcy and grabbed her kid, who was easily 18, by the wrist and dragged her out, pushing a very expensive ceramic vase down on her way out. Well, we called the police, charged her for damages of property, barred her from our services, and sent a description of the event, along with contact details to friendly counselors who freelance with us or we know of to warn them. Now we are waiting for her to sue us. The legal representative is basically bouncing out of her chair in excitement. We know we did nothing wrong. Bit, a backstory. My family is pretty small, consisting of just my parents, me, Guy, age 20, grandparents, on my mom's side, my uncle, who is a bear of a man, always keeps a stern look on his face and enjoys his drink and has a pretty nifty whiskey collection, if you can call it that, including a very old bottle that my grandfather gave him before he died that he was always saying he was saving for a special occasion, probably little cousin's wedding. He isn't a drunk or anything though, so don't worry. Aunt and cousin, girl, age 18. Since we are a pretty small family and live relatively close to by, we're all very tight and go on vacations together all the time and get together multiple times every week. Me and little cousin, however, are exceptionally close, almost like brother and sister rather than cousins. We've always frequented the same schools and have played together ever since we were babies. This is something everyone knows, friends and family alike, as we're usually always together and hang out with the same group of people. It's also worth mentioning that I'm not a very confrontational kind of guy, and I don't think I have ever been in a fight my entire life. So this happened a few months ago, but it's still pretty fresh in my memory. Little cousin had just turned 18, so we had a party with the family to celebrate. A few days later, we decided to get together with some of our closest friends and go out for drinks. Legal age in my country is 18, so don't worry about that. We decided to go to a bar close to her house that I frequent with some friends. Now, since it's little cousin's first real night, out and first time ever drinking, her father, despite being a man who enjoys his drink, made a point of not letting her touch alcohol until she was 18. I tell her not to drink too much since she's not used to it. We have some drinks and have some laughs, and all around enjoy a good time in the company of friends. After some time, I check my phone to see the time, and notice it's already 2:0 a.m. So I turn to little cousin who's sitting next to me and tell her it's probably a good idea to head home, since this is her first time out, and we don't want to worry her parent. She agrees. We say goodbye to our friends and head out of the bar. Like I said before, the bar is pretty close to her house, 10, 15 minutes walk. So we decided to walk instead of taking a bus. On the way, little cousin asks to sit down on a bench because she isn't feeling too well. We sit on the bench and I ask her how she's feeling. I can see there's no drunkenness involved here since I saw what she drank and it wasn't much. So she probably just has a bellyache since it's her first time drinking and she isn't used to alcohol yet. We stay there for a while so she can rest and take some deep breaths. Enter the douchebag. As we're sitting on the bench, I see a guy walking in our direction. At first I don't think much of this since he's probably just going to walk past and ignore us. Nope. He approaches and asks if little cousin is feeling okay, and I say she's just feeling sick from the drinks we had and that we would be on our way soon enough. This guy proceeds to sit down, uncomfortably close to my cousin, puts his arm around her and starts asking her all kinds of questions. Little cousin is visibly disturbed by this. Not only is her belly aching, now she has this random guy she doesn't know from anywhere getting too close to her and asking her all these questions. She gets up, comes to sit on the other side of the bench and snuggles up to me, leaving me in the middle of them now. The guy doesn't say a thing and just stands up and turns his back to us. Thinking he was about to leave, little cousin whispers to me that she's glad that's over and I giggle a little. At this point, I don't know if the guy heard what we said or not, or if this was his plan all along. But when I lifted my face to look up at him, he is now turned back to us again with a knife in his hand pointed at me. Little cousin just freezes, no screams or anything, but her eyes completely glued to the knife. This guy starts yelling, demanding we give him money. I tell him I don't have any money since we just came from drinking with friends. He keeps insisting I give him what money I have, and I keep telling him I have none. He then proceeds to point his knife at my cousin, now yelling even more, and with several profanities added to the mix and saying what he would do to her if we didn't give him any money. Little cousin has tears rolling down her face at this point and is shaking in fear. Now, like I said before, I'm not a very confrontational kind of guy, and I'm perfectly aware that if this happened and I was with anybody else, I would have just given this guy my money, phone, everything. But this guy had the audacity to point a knife and threaten to do things to my cousin, who is like a little sister to me, someone I love to death and who's been with me in the worst moments of my life and vice versa, someone I would take a bullet for. When I see him pointing his knife at her, something inside me just snaps, and I get up as quickly as I can and rush for his arm. I manage to twist it behind his back in an attempt to have him drop the knife, but due to the adrenaline rush, or just the anger I was feeling, I used too much strength, and an audible crack was heard. Don't get me wrong here, I don't feel any remorse from breaking this guy's arm, nor am I sorry for it, but I just wanted you to understand that I never intended to break his arm, just to get the knife. The guy collapses on the floor, screaming in pain while clutching his arm. I immediately move for the knife and tell my cousin to call the cops. They arrive within 10-15 minutes and are greeted by a scene of a girl crying, a dude screaming in pain on the ground, and me still holding onto the knife. They yell for me to drop the knife, which I do, and proceed to handcuff me. At this point, the adrenaline rush has left me, and thinking about the fact that I broke someone's arm, I can't really say anything back. My little cousin immediately intervenes, still in tears, and tells the two officers about what just happened. They check the guy who is still screaming in pain at this point, saying that I attacked him. The officers immediately notice that he meets the description of a man reported for a stabbing a few days prior to this event. They uncuff me, and little cousin grabs me and starts crying on my shoulder. They call an ambulance for the guy since he very clearly has a broken arm, and then proceed to properly take our statements. The ambulance arrives while we're still talking to the two officers. Little cousin has stopped crying now, but is still clearly shaken up and hasn't let go of me. They tell me how lucky I was. I didn't get stabbed for trying to fight the guy. In hindsight, as I'm writing this, I have to agree with them. It was a very dumb move, and I could have ended up stabbed, or worse, my little cousin could have been stabbed too. And that next time, I should just give my wallet. The paramedics put the guy in the ambulance and take him to a hospital. The officers tell me not to worry too much since I acted in self-defense, and that he is most likely going to jail, but that me and my cousin will probably have to go to court to testify. After making sure we're okay one last time, they ask if we need them to take us home. But since little cousin's house is close by, I tell them there's no need, and they leave after the ambulance. Me and little cousin start running and don't stop until we reach her house. Her parents are already asleep at this point, and since we don't want to wake them up and worry them, I tell her she should go to bed, but that she should tell them about it first thing in the morning. She agrees, and after talking about what had just happened to us for a while, I take my leave, after making sure she locks the door properly, get in my car and drive. When I get home, my parents are still up waiting for me and ask me how the night was. I retell everything that had just happened as they listen in utter disbelief and in a state of panic, asking if little cousin is okay, and if I'm okay. I tell them everything is fine and they calm down a bit. They ask if my uncle already knew. I say he doesn't since he and my aunt were already asleep when we got to their house. As they are talking between each other trying to process what I had just told them, I start to cry. My parents start panicking up again, asking if I was okay and telling me that I'm safe now. I tell them I'm not crying because I'm hurt or because I'm afraid. I'm crying because I'm so angry and frustrated thinking about what that guy could have done to little cousin. They tell me everything's okay now, and that I should probably head to bed and not think about it, but that we would go over to little cousin's house in the morning to make sure everything is okay. I agree and head to bed. The next morning, as we're getting ready to leave, my father gets a call from his brother, my uncle, little cousin's father, telling him to go over to his house and to take me with him before turning off the call. My father tells me I'm probably in trouble and that I should start mentally preparing myself for a yelling. We go over to little cousin's house, and before getting out of the car, my parents insist that I go in front and that I should have a good talk with my uncle and my aunt. As I'm going up the stairs to the porch, the front door opens and little cousin comes flying at me with a huge smile on her face and hugs me. I ask her if she's okay, to which she says yes. Then with a very serious face, she tells me my uncle wants to have a talk with me. I gulp down, preparing myself for the word, and we head inside. My uncle is in the living room sitting on the sofa. When he sees me, he immediately stands up. Now, like I said, remember that this guy is a hulking bear of man, way taller than I am. I close my eyes and grit my teeth as anybody would when they're expecting to receive a slap that's capable of propelling them to space. The next moment, my uncle is hugging me, bawling his eyes out, thanking me for protecting his little girl and saying that I let the guy go easy with just a broken arm. I can't even speak at this point because I was expecting to get a beating, but I'm now in disbelief, seeing my uncle cry, something I never witnessed before. My father is standing behind me in shock as well, since he himself doesn't remember seeing his brother cry, apart from when they were kids. All the while, little cousin is laughing so hard because she knows I was about to crap my pants. Soon enough, aunt also comes over and hugs me and thanks me for what I did. My uncle tells me not worry about a thing and says that he will do whatever he takes, so get that guy in jail. So I worked security for a major military contractor at one point. Our supervisor liked using our random search number as a tool for punishment for perceived grievances with us. Normally, our search number was something around 1525, meaning we would only pull over and search every 15th car and every contractor truck. It was very cold and very miserable in the mornings when we would suddenly have a couple hundred employees and contractors show up between 5 to 8 p.m. This day, our supervisor got upset because when he came in at 4 p.m. for his day shift, he was the 15th car, deciding that he must now ruin everyone else's day, even though we did our best to search his vehicle promptly, but completely. So he couldn't say we weren't doing the searches completely. So he set the day shift search number to 3. So we complied. There was only enough room for 3 cars, trucks to be pulled over at once. And once that was done, we'd usually stop searches until the others were completed, keeping traffic moving. Not today. This time, we filled the search area and then stopped traffic until all 3 vehicles were cleared. Then allow 2 cars through, pull over the third, allow 2, pull third, allow 2, pull third, allow 2, pull third, stop all traffic and start searches. We ended up with a line of cars waiting to get into the plant that went 2 miles long. It got so long the local police got involved up the road as people were blocking traffic in some intersections. Then came the phone call from a 3-star general that stuck in that said traffic a mile up the road. Suddenly, we were called to cease all searches for the morning. I later heard that it had been too little too late to cancel the ridiculous searches and our major military contractor lost $1 billion contract out of the deal. And that supervisor was initially going to be fired, but negotiated his way to just being busted down to a regular guard. We were union, so he started lowest on the seniority chart and got stuck working all the mandatory overtime and all the worst posts, including the one he had made miserable that morning. Edit. I should have noted that 2 weeks later, said contract was renegotiated after the company I worked for explained that the person responsible for the general's limousine being held up in traffic for almost an hour had been reassigned. No innocent jobs were lost in the making of this malicious compliance. So this happened just last week. Even so, my memory is kind of bad, so this isn't verbatim. My 21 dad owns and runs several car washes in and near the city I live in, and I regularly help him and my mom out with stuff. Mostly with picking up sweeping trash, dumping garbage, spraying down dirty self-serve bays, etc. I don't know a lot about fixing things, but they're currently learning to fix changers and stuff and plan on teaching me once they get the hang of it. The main thing that I help them with, though, is checking a few locations after I'm done with my regular job. My current job is with a security company, and I work nights until midnight most days and until 4 on one day of the week. So it's usually 30 or 40 minutes from the time I get off work, check the car washes, and get home. This particular night, though, I stayed for over an hour and a half. One night after work, I was doing the usual rounds, nothing unusual or suspicious going on. I'm supposed to be extra cautious lately, mostly because over the past few months, car washes in and around our city have been getting broken into. My dad assumes it's because everyone is staying home so they can't rob houses anymore. I get to the last location I check on the way home and do the usual routine. Drive through the automatic brush bay to make sure no one is hiding behind / messing with the machine parts. Apparently it happened before and it scared the heck out of my dad. Apparently the guy was just trying to get out of the rain. I can see through the touch, free bay no problem. So no need to go through there. Drive past the vacuum islands and make sure all the timer screens in the self-serve bays are on and not busted in. There's no way to get to any money from the 1" by 2" screen. But hey, people are dumb. As I drove through the brush bay, I saw a car backed in next to one of the vacation islands. But I didn't hear the vacuum running, and all of the car doors were shut. That was immediately AU, albeit small. Red flag, along with the fact that there wasn't any license plate. Another car was by one of the other islands, also inside the car, but with the car running and headlights on. I kept going and checked the screens, and all was good there. I decided to go and park up by the office, and from there I could see the running car from my side view mirror. But shortly after, they sat in the self-serve bay for a minute or so before leaving. I can access the cameras from my phone, so I pulled up the single-screen view to watch the first car. And after a minute or two of no activity, I called my dad to let him know what was going on. He told me to go back to the vacuums and talk to Guy. I did so, backing into the space next to him on the opposite side of the island and putting it back into drive, something my dad's told me to do in case I need to book it. The guy was in the front seat but twisted around halfway to rummage around in the back. I put my window down and did a quiet honk, the kind to try and get someone's attention. But he didn't turn around even after a couple more times. I waited for a bit, and he finally turned around. I always try to be polite and give the benefit of the doubt, so I gave a small smile, waved, and motioned for him to roll down his window. He shouted, "What?" with his window still up, so I motioned again. He scoffed at me and shook his head. During this, I was giving my dad a play-by-play to let him know what was happening, as well as trying to keep him from falling back asleep. Eventually, he rolled down his window. "Hello? Hello? I noticed that you've been sitting here for a while, so I was just wondering if everything was all right." Through the entire conversation, has an attitude and is passive, aggressive, leaning more and more towards straight-up aggressive. "I'm fine. What the heck do you want?" My dad, on speaker, but my phone isn't loud enough for the guy to hear him. Ask him if he's going to vacuum. "Do you plan on vacuuming tonight? Or are you more just decluttering?" Him, sarcastically. "Yeah, I'm at a car wash by the vacuums because I'm not going to vacuum." "It ain't your business." Me, still trying to be polite, okay? I'm just trying to... My dad then said, "Tell him he needs to vacuum or leave. He's dealt with enough crap that he just gets straight to it." I, unfortunately, am not as confident as him, especially when it's dark out. I'm by myself, and all I have to defend myself is pepper spray. By this point, the guy had already put his window back up and got out to move stuff in the back seat. I could now see another person in the passenger seat, presumably his girlfriend. She was trying to say something, but I couldn't make out what she was saying between the window and my dad talking to me. I don't remember what about at this point. The guy kept making comments about how long I'd been hanging around for, and by this point, I was extremely uncomfortable and anxious, and all I could really say to him was something about not wanting to drive and use my phone at the same time. My dad finally told me I can go back to the other side of the building, and from there he told me to call the cops to get a no trespass on both of them. I'm already not a fan of police, but I've had to call them before for a similar, though much less anxiety-provoking situation, and there's no way my dad would let me not call them down there. There's not much dialogue from this point on, and I couldn't see what exactly was happening since I was trying to stay out of the way once the cops got there, but after a while they put the guy in the back of one of the cars. An officer came over to tell me that they had a warrant for his arrest. The guy's car got towed, and shortly before I left, a police van arrived. I assumed to transport the guy. I don't know why they wouldn't just use one of the 3 cop cars that were there, though. To be honest, I don't know a lot about police stuff. I was super anxious throughout the whole ordeal, but it did feel kind of nice knowing that, because he wouldn't just be polite. It led to him getting arrested. For some context, I met this guy on Reddit around 4 months ago. He had a well-established account. It was 7 years old, and he was kind of popular in a few communities. We were talking for the first few weeks, however, I decided that we wouldn't be compatible. We met in a subreddit, and our needs seemed to be different. We agreed to stay as friends, and we were gaming buddies for a solid 3 months. Everything seemed fine. We used to voice chat and game a couple times a week. And then around 2 weeks ago, completely out of the blue, he blocked me everywhere. I'm obviously rather upset by this, but have no way to ask for clarity, so I just try my best to breathe and move on. Fast forward to the beginning of this week, I get a message on Instagram saying that this guy's Reddit account had posted explicit messages between him and I from the first few weeks of talking in a subreddit. The person who messaged me was checking that I had consented to the post since he was stupid enough to leave my username in the image. I didn't consent to this, and the post was reported by me on this account and several other people. I can only assume that this is what caused his account to be banned. A few days later, I got a call from my manager saying she received an email and would like a meeting. Turns out this guy had taken screenshots of my Instagram and Discord and outed me to my place of work. I am a trans guy who can't be out to anyone other than friends, as my home support system isn't great, so my work knows me as my dead name. Thankfully, I only got a light scolding for being careless about where I worked, and my manager was supportive of my transition. Now fast forward to last night where I received this lovely message. It won't let me add any images, so I'll give a brief outline of the messages without getting too unclean. Him: I can't believe you got my Reddit account X-deleted. All I did was post a dirty chat. We were compatible, we could have worked, but you're so picky. I hope your job fires you for lying about who you are. How are you supposed to live a life if you can't even be honest about what you want to do with your gender? I hope whatever unfortunate soul you end up with knows what he's getting into with you. You're a waste of oxygen at this point. I wasted so much time hoping you'd change your mind about me, but you barely gave me a chance. Hope your new victim hurts you. You deserve to be crushed. Thanks for making me lose my 7-year-old account I was using to build up. Again, for context, almost 2 months ago I started talking with another guy who is now my boyfriend, and things are going so great. Since I considered him a friend, I was happy to share that I was talking with someone new, and he seemed at the time rather supportive and encouraging. But by the tone of these messages, it's kind of clear that he wasn't okay with being just friends, and he's maybe jealous of my new relationship. I should add that 2 days ago, he contacted my best friend on Instagram, who refuses to show me the messages, so I can only assume that yet again it's his attempt to try to expose me somehow. Anyway, my response to this was along the lines of, me, this will be my final message to you. This is all on you for not communicating your feelings to me like an adult. You said you were okay with us being friends, we games, for around 4 months, and you had plenty of time to tell me you had feelings or whatever you call this, and I wouldn't have spoken about who I was talking to. Stop trying to contact my work and stop trying to contact my best friend. You lost access to your account because you posted explicit conversations between us without my consent or permission. You're 26? Grow up and move on. I gather he didn't take too lightly to this, as his final response before deleting the account was, him: I hope you lose everyone who loves you. You don't deserve to be loved. I hope you pop one too many of your pills. I hope you don't get whatever you want. I hope your boy toy cheats on you. I hope your pregnant best friend dies and you off yourself because you're so pathetic and lonely you can't live without her. So here's me ranting and exposing what a fragile man this guy is for blocking and harassing me, instead of communicating his feelings like a mature adult. And by the way, my boyfriend and I are laughing at this, especially the boy toy bit. I'm not as upset as I would have been if this had happened a few months ago. I'm learning to grow a backbone and stick up for myself when it's needed. And I certainly know that blocking me so I couldn't tell you to stop messaging my friends and posting explicit stuff and harassing my place of work shows more about him than it does for me.